I knew something was wrong the moment I heard their voices behind the curtain. If you've ever given everything to your family, your time, your savings, even your body, and still ended up discarded like trash, then stay with me. What I'm about to tell you isn't just my story. It's a warning, a wake-up call, and maybe, just maybe, it'll keep someone else from signing their life away like I almost did. The hospital room was too quiet. That strange kind of quiet where you can hear the tick of your own pulse. I was sitting up in bed, holding the release form in one hand, the pen in the other. The surgeon had stepped out, said he'd be back in 5 minutes. I was about to sign. I was about to give a piece of my liver to my son. My only child, Stephen. He was 38 now, a business consultant, polished, sharp, smiling just enough to charm anyone who didn't know better. He'd been diagnosed 6 months ago, liver failure, sudden, severe, and I didn't even hesitate. I told him he could have mine. I meant it too. But behind the curtain, on the other side of that thin hospital wall, I heard everything. The voices weren't hushed. They were careless. Angela, his wife. She laughed. She actually laughed. Then came Stephen's voice, flat, cold. Once the liver's in and the insurance clears, we move her out. Maple Pine, cheapest nursing home in the county. Out of sight, out of mind. I didn't breathe. My hand froze mid-signature. The pen dropped into my lap. I felt something snap, not just in my chest, in my soul. Then another voice, shaky, high-pitched. Grandma? It was Hannah, 14 years old. My granddaughter. Her voice cracked like glass under pressure. You're putting Grandma in a nursing home after everything she's done? Silence. Stephen again, but louder this time. She's had her life. We need to think about ours now. The house is already refinanced. We've got plans. And don't forget, this liver thing, it's a win-win. I couldn't move. I couldn't cry. I was paralyzed with a kind of betrayal I didn't know existed. I had raised that boy, alone. His father walked out when Stephen was 3. I worked double shifts at the county hospital, missed birthdays, skipped vacations, saved every dime so he could have college, so he could have a life better than mine. And now, I was a burden, a deal, a signature away from being erased. The door creaked open. Hannah rushed in, red-faced, breathless, tears streaming. Grandma, don't sign it. Don't. I heard them. I recorded it. I have it on my phone. I looked at her. This girl, my granddaughter, the only person in that moment who saw me as a human being, not a transaction. My voice was barely above a whisper. Close the door, honey. She did. I sat up straighter. My hands were shaking, but my spine had turned to steel. I took a long breath. Let it fill me up. Let it burn through the numbness. Let it remind me that I was still here, that I hadn't signed anything. Not yet. I want you to listen to me carefully, I told Hannah. From now on, no more tears, no more fear. We're not victims. Not anymore. She nodded, confused, but trusting. I'm glad you're here. If you're still listening, let me ask you something. Have you ever been blindsided by your own blood? Looked someone in the eye thinking they loved you, only to find out you were just useful? That's where this story begins, and it only gets louder from here. I didn't cry. I didn't yell or throw the release form or make a scene. I just sat there, heart racing, hands cold, my granddaughter's voice still echoing in my ears. She had recorded them. She had proof. I told her to keep it safe. Then I looked down at that form, read the words one last time, and calmly folded it in half. I tucked it under my pillow and leaned back like nothing happened. The door opened again a few minutes later. Stephen walked in with that fake softness in his eyes, the kind that had fooled me for years. "There you are," he said. "We were just talking about you. How are you feeling?" "Fine," I answered, a little tired. He smiled and sat on the edge of the bed, like a good son. Like a son who hadn't just signed away my house or planned my future without me. Angela peeked her head in. "Just wanted to check on you, Mum," she said, her voice sugary sweet. "The kids are excited. It means so much to Stephen, what you're doing." I looked straight at her and nodded. "Of course. I just want him to get better." "Good," she said, stepping fully into the room now. "Because once this is done, we'll be able to really move forward with our lives. Everything's almost in place." She paused, glanced at Stephen. "I mean," she added, "the house will need a bit of reorganization, but it's all going to work out. For everyone." I tilted my head. "What do you mean by reorganization?" Angela's smile flickered for half a second. "Well, I mean, Stephen mentioned something about making space. It'll be easier once the transition's done. Maple Pine has a great reputation." There it was. Said to my face now. Stephen cleared his throat. "We'll talk about it later," he said quickly. "You should rest." Angela stepped forward, her voice low. "Just sign the final consent form soon, all right? The team needs it on file today. It's just paperwork." Then she leaned in, and the smile disappeared. "It's better for everyone if you don't complicate this, Margaret." I stared at her. She blinked, trying to recover her fake charm, but I didn't look away. I didn't flinch. "I'll take care of it," I said. They left soon after. I waited until the door shut, then pulled out the consent form again. I stared at my name, half written, and felt my stomach turn. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was insult, humiliation. They didn't even bother pretending. To them, I was a loose end to tie up, a final piece to cash in. I sat there, replaying the last year in my head. Stephen coming around more often, Angela cooking Sunday dinners, the sudden warmth, the talks about family and legacy. They had been laying the groundwork for this, building trust again, only to rip it out when they needed something from me. I thought about the house, my house, the one I paid off in full, where Stephen grew up, the one I nearly lost twice during the recession, but held on to by working back-to-back night shifts. Now it was theirs, just like that. My name scrubbed from the paperwork like I was never there. I had been naive, but not anymore. The door cracked open again. Hannah, this time. Her eyes were swollen. She slipped inside and sat beside me, clutching her phone like a lifeline. "Grandma," I saved the audio file. I emailed it to myself too, and to Linda. She said she could keep it safe if you want. Linda was my old nurse supervisor. She retired last year. Tough as nails, trusted with my life. If she was in, this was more than just pain control. This was strategy. "Good," I told her. "That was smart." Hannah looked down. "I didn't know what to do. I couldn't let them do that to you. They kept saying you'd forget, that you wouldn't notice, that you were slowing down." My throat tightened. "I'm proud of you," I said quietly. "You saw the truth and you did something. That's more than most adults." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "They don't know I heard. I just stood outside. I don't think they even care. That's their mistake," I said. I sat up fully. Pain flared in my ribs, but I ignored it. I reached over, pressed the call button for the nurse. When the nurse walked in, I asked for a new copy of the consent form. "Stephen asked us to keep the original," she said carefully. "I'm sure he did," I replied. "I'll need a fresh one. I have changes to make." The nurse nodded and left. Hannah looked at me. "What are you going to do?" I didn't answer right away. Then I looked her straight in the eye. "We're going to let them believe I'm still their fool. We're going to let them think I'm signing. And when they least expect it, we'll show them exactly who I am." My hands were no longer shaking. By the time the new form arrived, I already had a plan. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to prepare. And when the time came, I was going to burn their little show to the ground. The next morning, I woke to the sound of voices outside my door. Sharp. Clipped. Stephen's tone had that cold edge again. Angela's was thinner, more urgent. I couldn't make out every word, but I caught enough to know they were talking about the papers, about timelines, about the liver, and about the house. I stayed still, eyes open, breathing slow, let them think I was still asleep. 5 minutes later, Stephen stepped inside like he owned the place. No knock, no hesitation. "Mum, just checking on you. How are you feeling today?" I turned my head slowly. "Better than yesterday." He gave that same smile. All teeth, no warmth. "That's good. That's real good. Doctor says everything's lining up perfectly. Surgery could be moved up if we get all the paperwork done." "Which reminds me, do you have that consent form?" I looked at him, then reached under the pillow and held up the blank form. "I tore the other one up," I said. "I needed a fresh start." Stephen's smile twitched. "Right. Well, go ahead and sign it when you're ready. No pressure, but sooner is better, obviously." He paused, trying to read my face. I gave him nothing. Angela came in right behind him carrying a tray. "Brought you breakfast, Mum." "Oatmeal, just like you like it." She set it down too hard, like she wanted the spoon to rattle. Then she sat on the edge of the bed, too close. Her perfume was too sweet. Her tone was too smooth. "You know, this is a big moment for the whole family. A chance to show how strong we are, how connected. I mean, not every mother gets the chance to save her son's life and help him rebuild the future all in the same week." She looked me dead in the eyes when she said it. I gave her a small smile. "Amazing, isn't it? Just how much one liver can accomplish." Angela blinked. Stephen cleared his throat. "Anyway, we've got a real estate agent coming by the house later today, just to look around. Don't worry, nothing big. Just a walkthrough. The bank needed some documentation, routine stuff." I froze, just for a second, then nodded. "Sounds like you're thinking ahead." He grinned. "Always. You taught me that." Angela stood. "We'll let you eat in peace. Let us know when the form's signed." They left. I didn't touch the oatmeal. I sat there, staring at it, my fists clenched under the blanket. Then I pressed the nurse call button. Linda showed up 15 minutes later. Bless that woman. She didn't even blink when I told her what I needed. "You want me to keep what?" I handed her Hannah's flash drive. It had the audio. Everything. Stephen's voice, Angela's laughter, Maple Pine, the whole plan. "I want a copy locked away, somewhere they can't touch." Linda slid it into her coat pocket like she was sliding a scalpel into a tray. "You got it. You want me to go further? I can talk to someone." "Not yet," I said, "but stay close." By noon they came back. Stephen paced at the foot of the bed. Angela sat on the windowsill, arms crossed, tapping her nails against her arm. "We're running out of time here, Mum," Stephen said. They need the form. The OR's being prepped. Everyone's waiting on you. I kept my voice calm. I'm reviewing it. Thoroughly. I just want to be certain everything's clear. Angela snorted. What's not clear? It's a form. You're giving a piece of your liver. He lives. You go back to your knitting and bingo nights. I locked eyes with her. I haven't knitted in 20 years, and bingo's never been my thing. Stephen stepped forward. Let's not make this harder than it needs to be. We've all made sacrifices to make this work. You think I wanted this? To be in this situation? You think I wanted to be lied to? I snapped. He stopped. I saw it. The flicker in his face. He knew I knew, but he didn't know how much. What are you talking about? I didn't answer. Angela moved quickly. Her smile was gone. She's stalling. She's looking for ways to back out. Typical Margaret. Plays the victim. Always has. I turned to Stephen. Is that what you think, too? That I'm playing the victim? Stephen hesitated. I think you're scared. I think you're overwhelmed. And I think you're letting that cloud what matters. What matters? I asked quietly. He took a breath. What matters is saving a life. My life. And the form needs to be signed today. I stared at him. Then sign this. I reached into my drawer and pulled out a new document. A handwritten one. Simple. Legible. Clear. Angela leaned in, reading. What the hell is this? This is my amendment, I said. Before I sign anything, I want legal confirmation that after recovery, I stay in my house, in my room, with my name still on the deed. No changes, no transfers, no outside care facilities unless I request it. Stephen's face darkened. That's ridiculous. This isn't the time for ultimatums. Then it's not the time for surgery. Angela stood. You ungrateful woman. You think this is about control. This is about survival. About giving your son a chance to live. And you're leveraging that like it's a favor. You're sick. I leaned forward. Not as sick as the two of you. She opened her mouth again, but Stephen stopped her. Fine, he said. We'll look it over. I handed it to him. He took it like it was poison. He didn't say thank you. He didn't apologize. They walked out. And that's when I knew. There was no fixing this. There was only finishing it. The following evening, Linda returned with the information I asked for. She didn't waste time. She stepped inside my hospital room, locked the door behind her, and handed me a folded envelope. I opened it slowly. Inside were photocopies of loan documents, deed adjustments, power of attorney requests, and every last signature said Margaret Ellison. Except I never signed a damn thing. My hands curled into fists before I even finished reading. Linda crossed her arms, her voice low and sharp. They filed the transfer 5 weeks ago. House went under Stephen's name. No second signature, no witness on file. All digital, all rushed. And the notary? Online. Probably forged. The air in the room turned colder. Everything I worked for, my home, my security, my name, gone, replaced by the click of a mouse and a son I didn't recognize anymore. They stole my house. I stood up. My knees wobbled for a second, but I steadied myself. That's not even the worst part, Linda added. Look at the insurance documents. I flipped to the next page. My breath stopped halfway. Angela's name, listed as primary beneficiary. On a life insurance policy I didn't even know existed, dated 6 months ago, just after Stephen got sick, premiums paid out of my old joint account. They weren't just planning to discard me, they were planning to profit from it. I looked at Linda, heat building in my chest. I need every copy. I need it locked. I need backup drives. And I want it somewhere he can't touch. Because the next time Stephen tries to put me in a corner, I'm going to slam the door behind him. Linda nodded. I already sent a copy to my lawyer friend. No names mentioned yet. But she's ready when you are. I took the papers, walked to the sink, splashed cold water on my face, and stared at myself in the mirror. This wasn't going to be quiet. Not anymore. The next morning, Stephen walked in wearing a clean-pressed shirt and that smirk I used to think was confidence. Now I knew it was arrogance. "Big day," he said. "The team's prepped. You ready to be the hero?" I turned away from the mirror. "I've reviewed everything." "Good. Glad we're past the drama. I need one more thing before I sign," I said. Stephen paused. "Of course." "What now?" "Bring Hannah in." He blinked, thrown off for the first time. "Why?" "Because I said so." He hesitated, then nodded and stepped out. 2 minutes later, Hannah entered, wide-eyed but calm. She walked straight to me and took my hand. "You ready, Grandma?" I nodded. I turned to Stephen, who was hovering just behind her. "Leave us," he scoffed. "Seriously?" I raised my eyebrows. "If you want my signature, walk out that door and wait until I call you back." His jaw tightened. He glanced at Hannah, then back at me, then stormed out, muttering. Once the door shut, I turned to my granddaughter. "They're not just planning to move me, Hannah. They're planning to erase me. From the house. From everything." I showed her the documents. Her hands shook as she read. Her face changed. "They faked all this. They actually faked your name. They did worse. They insured me. Without telling me. Angela's name is on the payout." Hannah stepped back. "That's disgusting." I nodded. "And that's why today we don't give them what they want. Today we let them believe they're in control. Then we burn it all down." Her voice cracked. "What do you want me to do?" "Stick close, keep your phone charged, and when I ask you to record, you record." She nodded. I pressed the nurse call button. Stephen re-entered 5 minutes later, all business, everything good. "Fine," I said. I reached for the pen slowly. I held it over the form. He leaned forward, expectant, but I didn't sign. Instead, I flipped the paper over, wrote 3 names, and handed it to him. "These are the people I want present before this goes any further. Linda, Hannah, and the head of surgical intake." Stephen frowned. "What is this?" "Transparency." Angela walked in without knocking, her phone in hand. "We don't have time for a parade. You're stalling again." I looked straight at her. "I'm not stalling. I'm documenting." Angela laughed. "Margaret. Please. Do you even know how serious this is? Your son could die. And if I sign, I might die faster." Stephen stepped forward, voice tight. "Enough of this. This isn't a negotiation. You said you were ready." "No. I said I had reviewed everything. I never said yes." Angela threw her hands up. "She's playing games, just like she always has." Hannah stood. "She's not playing anything." "You are." Angela turned, eyes wide. "Watch your mouth." "No. You watch what you're doing. You're trying to bury her while she's still breathing." Stephen pointed at her. "You don't know what you're talking about." I raised my voice. "She knows enough. She knows more than you realize. Because while you were busy writing me off, she was listening, recording, watching, and she has all of it saved." Stephen's face went blank. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I have the tape, the documents, the signatures you forged, the notary you faked, the money you took, the policy you bought behind my back." Angela lunged toward me. "You lying old witch!" Linda burst in right then, followed by the intake coordinator. Angela froze mid-step. Linda held up a flash drive. I think it's time this gets reviewed. The coordinator looked around. What's going on here? I looked her in the eye. Fraud, exploitation, financial abuse, attempted medical coercion. Stephen tried to speak. She's confused. I turned to him. I'm more clear than I've ever been. And I'm done being your mother. From now on, I'm my own advocate. And you're going to watch everything fall apart, starting now. The room erupted the second Linda stepped forward with the flash drive. Angela's eyes went wild. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Stephen went pale, like all the blood in his face had drained straight to the floor. The intake coordinator stood stunned, blinking at all of us, trying to process what she'd just walked into. I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. I just nodded once, and Linda walked the drive over to the computer on the counter and plugged it in. You have every right to hear this, I said to the coordinator. And I have every right to protect myself from being exploited by the people in this room who claim to love me. The recording began. First a soft static, then Stephen's voice. Once the liver's in and the insurance clears, we move her out. Maple Pine, cheapest nursing home in the county. Out of sight, out of mind. Angela's laugh followed, crisp, heartless, mocking. Then came the sound of Hannah's voice. Cracking, desperate. You're putting Grandma in a nursing home after everything she's done. The room went dead silent. The intake coordinator's head snapped towards Stephen, eyes wide. Is this your voice? Stephen opened his mouth, but I spoke first. It's his voice. And hers. No edits, no cutting, no context needed. Angela stepped forward fast, her words sharp and loud. This is entrapment. She set us up. She tricked us. That girl had no right recording us. Linda stood her ground. The girl was protecting her grandmother. From you. Angela turned to Stephen, panicked. Do something. Stephen didn't move. His shoulders dropped. His eyes darted to the screen, then to the floor, then to me. This was all a misunderstanding. I kept my stare locked on him. No, this was a plan. Calculated. Cold. You forged my name. You sold my house. You made me believe you were rebuilding our bond, all while preparing to toss me aside like I was nothing. The coordinator cleared her throat. We'll need to pause this surgery. There's clear concern about the validity of the patient's consent and potential abuse. Angela turned on me again. You're ruining everything. He could die. And for what? Pride. Bitterness. Some twisted need to be a martyr. I stepped closer. I'm not the one cashing in on someone else's liver. I'm not the one using love as a weapon. And I'm not the one whose name is on an insurance policy waiting for a death to collect. Angela's face twisted. You're ungrateful, selfish. You think you're some noble woman. But really you're pathetic. You've always been pathetic. That's why your husband left. That's why your son doesn't want you. That hit like a punch to the gut. But I didn't step back. I stood taller. You're right about one thing. My husband did leave. And I raised Stephen alone. Worked 60-hour weeks. Skipped meals so he could eat. Paid for his college. Covered his debts. Saved his life more times than I can count. And now I see exactly what kind of man I raised. But I also see what kind of woman I've become. And today, I choose me. Stephen finally spoke. You don't mean that. I looked straight at him. I mean every word. He reached for the paper on my tray. The consent form. Give me that. I grabbed it first, held it up in front of his face, then slowly ripped it in half. Then again, until the only thing left was confetti falling to the floor between us. Angela gasped. You're insane. No, I'm awake. For the first time in years. The intake coordinator turned to Stephen. We'll be reporting this to hospital administration and to the Adult Protective Services team. There will be a full investigation into all financial and legal documentation related to your mother's care and property. Stephen's voice cracked for the first time. She's exaggerating. It wasn't like that. We needed help. And instead of asking, you tried to rob me. Angela moved fast again, this time toward the computer, probably trying to pull the drive. But Hannah blocked her. Tall, unafraid. She didn't even speak, just stared her down. Linda grabbed the drive and handed it to the coordinator. Keep that safe. I looked around the room, at the wreckage, at the people I once trusted, at the little girl who now stood stronger than both of her parents combined. Stephen's voice turned low. You've ruined everything. No, I just stopped pretending. Angela hissed. No one will believe you. We'll fight this. We'll bury you in legal fees and red tape. I smiled. Good. Then I'll bury you in truth. The coordinator escorted both of them out, her tone clipped and professional. Once the door shut, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. My hands were still shaking, but it wasn't fear. It was adrenaline. Fire. Hannah came up beside me, took my hand. Grandma, I squeezed her fingers. Thank you. For being brave. For standing by me. She blinked, holding back tears. I always will. Linda sat down in the chair across from me, arms crossed, a half smile pulling at her face. That was something else, Margaret. I nodded. That was just the beginning. 2 hours after the coordinator escorted Stephen and Angela out, everything changed. The hospital administrator walked into my room with 2 compliance officers behind her. No smiles, no pleasantries. They asked me to confirm my identity, then closed the door. We've reviewed the audio, she said. We've received a copy of the insurance documents, and we've already started pulling all patient files and authorization forms tied to your case. I nodded once. My voice came steady. Do what you have to do. They asked to see the most recent consent form. I held up the shredded pieces still sitting in the trash bin next to my bed. That's all that's left of it. The administrator nodded. We're pausing your case indefinitely. No surgery will move forward under current conditions. And if we confirm what we suspect, this will move beyond hospital policy. It may involve law enforcement. I felt something settle in my chest. Not peace, not yet, but something like weight lifting, just enough to breathe fully again. Thank you, I said. By the time they left, news had already rippled through the floor. Nurses glanced in when they walked past, their expressions different now. Not pity, not avoidance. There was something else in their eyes now. Respect, recognition. Stephen didn't come back that day, but Angela did. She barged in like she owned the room, eyes wild, phone in hand. Do you have any idea what you've done? I didn't move, didn't flinch. You've humiliated him. You've destroyed this family. You think that flash drive means anything. It's not even admissible without consent. I looked at her, slow and cold. You really think this is about legality, about files and signatures? She laughed, sharp and ugly. What else is it about then? Your little revenge fantasy. You want to feel powerful. Fine. Go ahead. Take your bows. She stepped closer. But you better be careful. Because people like you don't win. You end up alone. Old. Forgotten. While the rest of us move forward and leave you behind. She leaned in too close. You think Stephen's the only one who wants you out of the way. You think your neighbors want to see you dragging your walker through their yards. You're just an old relic clinging to property and guilt. That's all you've got left. I looked at her, held the silence just long enough. I see you now, clearly. I see exactly what you are. Angela blinked, confused. You wear my son like a puppet. Pull his strings, tell him who to love and who to erase. You smile when you steal. You laugh when you lie. But the truth is, you're afraid. Because no matter how much you manipulate him, you will never have what you want most. She stepped back. And what's that? A legacy. Angela scoffed. I have a home. I have a husband. I have a future. You have a house you stole, a man you control, and a future built on fraud. She laughed again. You're not going to survive this. You're too soft. No. I was soft. I was quiet. I let things slide. I let love blind me. But not anymore. The door opened. Hannah walked in, phone recording. She didn't say a word, just lifted the screen where the red light blinked. Angela froze. You little rat. She lunged, arms swinging, but I moved first. I stepped between them, raised my voice. Touch her. And I swear, Angela, you won't make it out of this hallway before every nurse on this floor pins you to the ground. Angela stopped. You think you're untouchable now? No, but I'm awake. And every second you're here, you make it worse. The door opened again. Linda walked in with a security officer behind her. Ma'am, the officer said, we need you to leave the premises. Angela didn't argue. For the first time, she saw it too. The end. The unraveling. She turned on her heel, stormed out without another word. Hannah lowered her phone. I'm sorry. You did exactly what needed to be done. Linda stepped closer. You're burning the whole thing down, Margaret. No. I'm just taking back what was always mine. That evening, the hospital served Stephen with an official no-contact order. He wouldn't be allowed on the premises unless I personally authorized it. My medical files were locked, my room was moved to a secure wing, and my care was assigned a new case manager, one that listened. The next morning, I woke to silence. No fake smiles, no spoiled oatmeal, no staged concern, just peace. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Because what they'd done to me wasn't just personal. It was systematic. And if it had happened to me, it was happening to others. And I wasn't going to stay quiet about that either. They thought I would disappear. They thought once they were escorted out, once the hospital locked my records, once the consent form was shredded, that I would simply lie back down and let it pass. But silence is a weapon too. And I was done being quiet. 2 days passed. During those 48 hours, Stephen never showed his face. Angela went dark. No calls, no texts, no hallway whispers. The hospital tightened security around my case. Even Linda said she hadn't seen administration this serious in years. But that wasn't enough for me. I wasn't just going to stop a surgery. I was going to confront the two people who planned to rip apart my life in broad daylight. And I wasn't going to do it behind closed doors. I asked the hospital for a mediation meeting. Official, documented, witnessed. They resisted at first, until Linda handed over the second drive. The one with backup footage from the corridor, showing Angela lunging toward Hannah. That sealed it. By noon the next day, a formal session was arranged in the hospital's conference room. White walls, fluorescent lighting, a long oak table, 2 cameras set up in opposite corners. Linda sat at my side. Hannah, too. Across the table, Stephen sat stiff, arms crossed, eyes cold. Angela next to him, back straight, face unreadable. A hospital compliance officer and a legal observer from the county sat off to the side. No one said a word. So I started. I looked Stephen straight in the eye. Tell me when it started. He blinked. What? The planning, the policy, the forged papers, the nursing home. When did it stop being about saving your life and start being about ending mine? Angela rolled her eyes. This is ridiculous. The compliance officer held up a hand. She has the floor. I kept going. You looked me in the face and asked for my liver, while the ink on the deed transfer was still drying. You called me your mother, while you and your wife discussed nursing homes like picking a brand of cereal. So tell me, which lie should I believe? Stephen leaned forward. I was desperate. I was dying. I needed help. You always said you'd do anything for me. Help doesn't include erasing someone's existence, I snapped. You signed over the house, he said. I never signed a damn thing. You copied my signature. You faked my name. Angela cut in. You were forgetful. We thought you'd given permission. There was confusion. No, there was strategy. You softened me up with dinners. You played the devoted son. You rebuilt the illusion of family just long enough to strip me clean and toss me aside. Angela turned to the officers. She's spiraling. I faced her. You forged my name on 3 documents. You bought a life insurance policy in your name. You planned a transfer into long-term care without my consent. If that's spiraling, you better buckle up. Stephen's jaw clenched. It wasn't supposed to go this far. But it did. You let her convince you that I was in the way. You let greed override love. And now you're sitting here acting like the victim. Angela turned to him. Don't listen to this. She's manipulating the whole situation. Hannah spoke up for the first time. The only manipulation I saw was from you. I heard you both. You talked about her like she was already gone. Angela's voice rose. She's a child. She's more adult than either of you. Linda stood, slid a folder across the table. Inside were records, audio transcripts, digital timestamps, proof. The compliance officer opened it and read. Forgery of medical documents, misrepresentation of power of attorney, unauthorized life insurance policy, attempted coercion of a vulnerable adult. Stephen went pale. Angela grabbed his arm. Don't say a word, but Stephen couldn't stop now. I just wanted to be free, he muttered. Free from what? He looked up, tears forming. From guilt, from debt, from the pressure of trying to measure up. You always made me feel like I owed you everything. I stared at him. You owed me nothing, except honesty. Angela stood. This meeting is over. Not yet, said the legal observer. We're recording. You're still under review. Angela turned on her heel, marched to the door, yanked it open. Stephen stayed seated. I'm sorry, Mum. I said nothing. I didn't want his apology. Not yet. Maybe not ever. He left quietly. And just like that, it was done. I turned to the officers. Now that you've heard it from them, I want formal charges filed. I want every document reversed. I want my house back. My name cleared, and a restraining order filed by the end of the week. The compliance officer nodded. You'll have it. I stood, my legs steady for the first time in days. Linda touched my shoulder. You didn't just win. You buried them. I looked at Hannah. No, I survived them. And now it was my turn to write the story. 2 days after the confrontation, I found myself walking through the front doors of the hospital again. But this time, not as a patient. This time, I walked in tall, steady, and without a pen in my hand, ready to sign my life away. The press conference had been scheduled that morning. The hospital PR team scrambled to control the optics, but there was no hiding what had already gone viral. The audio recordings, the confrontation clips, the headlines were everywhere. Elderly woman exposes son and daughter-in-law for exploitation. Hospital halts surgery. Adult Protective Services launches investigation. I didn't ask for the attention, but I wasn't going to shy away from it either. The truth deserved light. Inside the conference room, I saw faces I didn't expect. Nurses, patients, staff who had seen me in the hallway for years without saying more than good morning. And now they stood, nodding as I passed, quiet but alert. Linda stood at the front, clipboard in hand, watching everything. She gave me a single nod. Hannah sat nearby, her back straight, eyes locked ahead. Not a child anymore. Not today. When I stepped up to the podium, the murmurs stopped. I looked across the room, then down at the pages in front of me. I didn't need them. The people who were supposed to protect me tried to discard me, my own blood, my only child. And they didn't use force. They used trust. That's the weapon no one sees coming. I paused, let that sit, then continued. They counted on my silence, on my age, on my need to keep the peace. But when peace is built on lies, silence becomes complicity. And I refuse to be complicit in my own destruction. From the back of the room, someone clapped, then another. It spread like fire. After the event, a journalist followed me to the hallway. "Mrs. Ellison, we've confirmed the restraining order has been filed. Stephen and Angela have been served. What are you hoping happens next?" I didn't stop walking. Justice, clarity, and space. They didn't need me to elaborate. Later that afternoon, the news broke that Stephen had been terminated from his consulting job. His name was being reviewed for professional misconduct. Angela had gone silent online. The house, now back in my name, had a lawyer assigned to block any further unauthorized action. I didn't celebrate with champagne or victory dances. I went home. I walked through the front door alone. And I sat in my old recliner, the one Stephen said made the living room look cheap, and I breathed in silence that didn't feel lonely. That night, the doorbell rang. I opened it expecting Linda or one of the investigators. It was Stephen, standing there, alone. Dressed in clothes he didn't look comfortable in anymore, face tired, eyes dimmer. He didn't say a word. I stepped aside. He walked in slowly, looked around like he didn't recognize the place. "It feels smaller," he said. "No. You just feel bigger when you think everything belongs to you." He looked at me, took in the line of my jaw, the way I didn't waver. "I messed up. That's too light a word." He nodded. I thought if I could just get through this, get the money, get the house, I could breathe again. I didn't know I was drowning you to stay afloat. And Angela, she left, took her things, blamed me, said I ruined her chance at real stability. Did you love her? I did. I don't know what I feel now. We stood in silence. Then he reached into his coat pocket and handed me an envelope. I didn't take it. What is that? My written confession. Every step, every lie, names, dates, the insurance details. I want to give it to the authorities myself. You won't have to fight me anymore. I still didn't reach for it. Why now? Because for the first time in years, I saw what you looked like when you stopped making yourself small for me. I saw what real strength is. And guilt. That too. I nodded once. Put it on the table. He did. He turned to leave. When he reached the door, I spoke again. You were my life's work. I gave up everything so you could become more than the man your father was. I never wanted a thank you. I only ever wanted you to be decent. He turned back. I don't know if I can fix this. You can't. He flinched. But you can start again. And he did something I hadn't seen since he was a boy. He cried. Not for me. For himself. And I let him. The morning Stephen's court summons arrived, I was in the kitchen boiling water for tea. The knock on the door came hard and fast, and I already knew it wasn't a visitor. I opened it to see a man in uniform and another in a blazer. They said my name, handed me a sealed envelope, and informed me that I would be notified of the hearing dates as a primary witness. Then they turned and left. I stood there for a moment, envelope in hand, watching the sun rise through the trees. The air was sharp, the kind that cuts through you, not to harm, but to remind you that you're alive. I didn't feel relief. Not exactly. It was something more exact, more final. It wasn't over yet, but it was finally in motion, something irreversible. The indictment listed 3 counts: fraudulent signature of property documents, coercion of a vulnerable adult, attempted financial exploitation. Angela was named directly in the second and third charges, Stephen in all 3. I sat at the table, unfolded the papers, and read each word with still hands. I didn't need to highlight anything. I had lived every sentence. Later that day, Linda called. They've requested you come in to finalize your witness statement. Bring everything. Audio files, written timelines, even the receipts Hannah pulled from the trash. I told her I would. When I arrived at the office, I didn't go alone. Hannah came with me, carrying a box in her arms filled with every piece of evidence we had collected over the last 3 weeks. Her shoulders didn't shake, her voice didn't crack. She looked like a woman, not a girl. And I knew that no matter what happened next, she had already crossed into a different chapter of her life. In the room were 3 investigators, 2 legal reps, and a court-appointed psychologist who had been asked to evaluate my mental state, just to ensure the report could not be challenged later on. After 2 hours of questions, cross-referencing timelines, reviewing medical records, and playing the audio recordings again, the lead investigator turned to me. Margaret, you are officially listed as a protected party under this investigation. There is no burden of proof left on your shoulders. They've done it all themselves. That night, the story made national news. Hospital blocks surgery over elder abuse scandal. Son and daughter-in-law face felony charges. Victim speaks publicly, becomes symbol for justice reform. People I hadn't heard from in years started reaching out. Women from my old nursing shifts, distant relatives, strangers. All saying the same thing. I thought I was the only one. But I wasn't interested in being anyone's symbol. I didn't need to be a headline. What I needed was one thing only: accountability. And that came 4 days later, when I received the final notification. Angela had been arrested after attempting to empty a private joint account she shared with Stephen, an account listed in the investigation as being funded by the refinancing of my home. Stephen, under pressure, had turned over additional documents, emails, text messages, everything pointing directly to Angela as the one who initiated the insurance application, forged my name on the first notarization, and instructed Stephen to push for the medical consent. He folded under her weight, but that didn't absolve him. When the doorbell rang again, I wasn't surprised. It was Stephen. No press, no suit, just him. He didn't ask to come in. He simply stood on my porch with his shoulders collapsed and his eyes red. I waited. "She's gone," he said. "I know. She used me. You let her." He nodded. "They'll take everything. My license, my career. They should." He winced. "You're right." There was no fire in his voice now, no manipulation, no mask. Just a man who had built his life on lies and finally realized it was made of dust. "I made a mistake," he whispered. "No, you made choices. You looked your own mother in the face and saw profit, not a person. You walked into my home and saw property, not history. You heard my heartbeat and timed it like a clock winding down. That isn't a mistake, that's intention." He didn't respond. He held out another envelope. I didn't take it. "It's a letter for Hannah. She deserves more than I gave her. Then leave it on the step." He did. Before he turned to go, he looked at me one more time. "I don't expect forgiveness." "Good. Because I'm not offering it." He nodded, once, and walked away. When the hearing date came, I sat on the front row with Hannah beside me, Linda behind us. A row of strangers from the community filled the other seats, some there to support, others just curious. But none of them knew the whole story. Not the way I did, not the way I lived it. The judge entered, the room stood, and as the first prosecutor rose to speak, I looked at the two empty chairs at the defense table. Stephen and Angela were not there. Their attorneys entered a plea agreement just hours earlier. Stephen would avoid jail, but surrender all claims to the house and pay restitution through community service for elder care programs. Angela would face trial. Her charges had compounded when investigators found her involved in two other insurance schemes in neighboring states. The judge asked me if I had anything to say. I stood, walked to the microphone, cleared my throat. "I came here today not for revenge, not for attention, but because I wanted the truth documented. I wanted a record that could not be deleted or spun or silenced. I wanted it known that I gave everything to my family, and when they tried to erase me, I chose to fight instead of disappear." I paused. "And I'm still here. That's what matters. I'm still here." 3 days after the plea deal was finalized, I received a handwritten note slipped through the mail slot. It wasn't in an envelope. Just folded once, no return address. But I recognized the handwriting immediately. I opened it slowly, the paper creasing along my fingers. It was from Stephen. He wrote that he wanted to speak in person. Just once. No lawyers, no cameras, no scripts. He asked for 20 minutes of my time to say what needed to be said. I sat at the kitchen table, read it twice, then placed it on the counter and walked to the window. Outside, the sky was heavy with clouds. Still, quiet, expectant. I didn't reply. I didn't have to, because by sunset, I knew he would come anyway. And he did. When I opened the door, Stephen stood there, just like before. But this time, he didn't pretend. No polished shirt, no false charm, just a man stripped down to what was left of him, tired, deflated, real. I didn't say anything. I turned and walked back inside. If he had the nerve to show up, he could follow. He did. We sat in the living room, the room he once said looked outdated, the one he'd planned to gut for resale value. Now it was just quiet, still smelled like lemon oil and old fabric. Stephen looked around, then at me. I came to take responsibility. All of it. I nodded once. "You got what you wanted," he continued. "The world knows what I did. My license is gone. I'll never work in consulting again. I had to sell my car to cover court fees. I'm starting over from nothing." "Good," I said. He flinched, but didn't argue. "I deserve it." I looked him in the eyes, my voice flat. "You deserve worse." Stephen leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. "I let her twist things. I let myself believe that your value had an expiration date. that what you gave was old, used up, irrelevant. But it wasn't. You gave everything. I didn't answer. He looked at the floor. You were always there, even when Dad left, even when I failed college the first time, even when I gambled away half my savings and blamed it on bad luck. You never gave up on me. And then I sold you out for a signature. You didn't sell me out, I said. You tried to erase me. He swallowed. I know. I stood and walked to the cabinet, opened the drawer, and pulled out the envelope he had once left for Hannah. I handed it to him. She read it. She kept it. But I think you need to see what you wrote. He took it slowly, unfolded the letter, and read the words aloud. To my daughter. I'm sorry for showing you how easy it is to betray love when fear gets loud. His voice broke. I'm sorry for teaching you that survival means stepping on someone else. That's not the man I wanted to be. I sat back down, arms folded. What do you want from me, Stephen? He looked at me, tears held back behind blinking eyes. I don't know. Forgiveness, maybe. A chance to rebuild something. You burned it down. I know. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed yourself. You became everything I raised you not to be. He didn't respond. His face crumbled, but he kept still, kept breathing through the wreckage. I continued. You chose lies. You chose shortcuts. You chose a woman who fed your ego and drained your spine. And when you were called to account, you blamed your desperation. But you had a choice every step of the way. And you chose wrong. He nodded. I lost everything. You lost your soul long before that. The silence between us stretched like a thin sheet of glass. One wrong move and it would shatter. Then quietly, Stephen spoke again. I want to earn something back, even if it takes the rest of my life. I raised an eyebrow. Like what? He looked up. Your respect. Hannah's. My own, maybe. I leaned forward. Then you start with the truth. No more performances, no more guilt traps, no more trying to look like a victim while you rebuild in secret. You face what you did, fully, publicly, privately. And when you're done with that, you spend the next 10 years working in silence, giving, not taking, until your name means something again. Stephen's throat tightened. Okay, I nodded. And one more thing. Stay away from this house. Until I say otherwise. You're not entitled to proximity just because you finally feel remorse. He stood, slow and steady. I understand. He turned to leave, then paused in the doorway. I never stopped wanting you to be proud of me. And I never stopped wanting you to deserve it. He didn't say anything else. He walked down the porch steps, into the fading light, and disappeared down the sidewalk like someone carrying the weight of every broken version of himself. And in that moment, I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel revenge. Just silence. Heavy. Final. But maybe, just maybe, not forever. The morning of the award ceremony was calm. The air held that crisp, early autumn stillness, as if the world itself was holding its breath. I stood at the window, watching the slow movement of wind through the trees. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't even excited. I just felt ready. For the first time in years, I was not defined by what had been taken from me, but by what I had reclaimed. The community centre had been renovated in record time. The plaques were mounted, the chairs lined up, the reception table set with simple flowers and pitchers of lemon water. On stage stood a podium, and behind it, a banner I hadn't seen until I arrived. The Whitfield Initiative. A small subtitle underneath read, "In honor of the women who raised us, held us, and refused to vanish. My name, my purpose, and not one mention of Stephen. He hadn't been invited, but I knew he was in the back. I saw him slip in quietly through the side entrance, his shoulders slouched, his suit borrowed from a better time. He sat in the last row. He didn't try to be seen. He didn't need to be. I knew he came because he needed to witness it. That was enough. When I was introduced, I walked on stage without hesitation. I looked out at a room filled with faces I didn't know, and a few I knew far too well. I took a breath and began. I used to believe that dignity was something you gave others, that if you loved someone, you made yourself smaller so they could feel big, that if they failed you, it was your job to forgive without question. I no longer believe that. I paused. The room was still. I believe dignity is something you owe yourself first, and once you honor it, others will either rise to meet you or fall away. But you cannot wait for permission to protect your worth. There were no cheers, no applause, just deep silence, the kind that said, "We hear you." After the speech, people lined up to shake my hand. Women in their 50s and 60s with tired eyes and strong grips. One whispered, "I almost gave my house to my son last year. You saved me." Another pressed a handwritten letter into my palm and said, "I thought I was the only one." It hit me then. This wasn't about revenge. It never had been. This was a warning and a beacon. By sundown, the building was quiet again. Most had gone. The media interviews were done. The news anchors got their sound bites. The local paper had their photos. But I stayed behind to walk the halls alone. I ran my fingers along the walls. My story was written into the grain of the wood. Not in shame, not in sorrow, in strength. Outside, the sun dropped low. That golden hour where everything looks softer, more forgiving. Stephen stood near the steps, not blocking the way, just standing, waiting. I walked past him, but he turned. "You were right to cut me out." I kept walking, but I'm not giving up on myself. Still, I didn't stop, until he added, "And I'm not asking you to forget, just hoping one day you'll see me trying." I paused, looked at him, not as a son, not as a traitor, but as a man rebuilding from rubble. I didn't respond. Some wounds don't need words. Some peace doesn't need permission. I walked to my car and drove home. That night I made tea and opened the window. The wind felt different, light, clear. I was no longer hiding. I had told the truth. I had reclaimed my name. And the people who once tried to erase me now had to live with what they did, in a world that finally saw me, not as a burden, but as a storm they couldn't silence. And somewhere in that quiet, I finally let go. Not for him, for me. If this story touched something inside you, you're not alone. Maybe you've been overlooked, underestimated, or used by the very people you raised. Maybe you're still waiting for justice. If so, I see you, and I hope this story reminds you your voice matters. Your worth does not expire. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from, or share your story. Because sometimes healing begins when we speak what others tried to bury. And if it happened to me, it could happen to someone you love.